Thanks everyone for joining us. I've got Martin Bradley from Grassroots Trust. He's the chairman and been good enough to give us some of his time. A sort of really difficult time for everyone in amateur sport at the moment, and funding is obviously such a big part of that. Difficult time, presumably, for the trust themselves. Martin, just your quick assessment of where the situation's at and how it's sort of impacted you guys at Grassroots over the last couple of months.
Thanks, Dale. Over the last couple of months, we've had our machines off all around the country when we're in level 4. And in level 3, we were able to activate the machines from level 2. But in Auckland, we have 20 sites that are still closed, and given that there's been 45 cases announced today, that may be going on for a little bit longer.
Yeah, certainly not the news that we're all hoping for. Mate, you guys have been really big supporters of Counties Manukau Rugby. That their situation they face, like a lot of people, very difficult. The rest of the competition back underway, and the Auckland-based unions having to sort of sit out for this, to start with at least anyway. We don't know whether they're going to be able to manufacture a way to get back in. I know everyone's desperately trying, but as supporters, along with the other sponsors of the union, it's obviously very, very encouraging that you're there helping them. Just tell us a little bit about the relationship with Counties Manukau Rugby and what you guys at Grassroots do for the union.
Grassroots Trust was originally set up by the Waikato Rugby Union to foster rugby in the Waikato and in other areas. But we've morphed into a lot more than that. We're a real community funder now. We fund, our website will tell you that it's 70% sport, 30% community and education, but in reality we sit closer to 50-50. Our relationship with Counties Manukau goes back a long way, more than 10 years. We've funded them to significant amounts, and the current regime that they've got there at the moment are doing a really good job in our assessment. In what is obviously tough times, we've been able to support them for the last couple of months, even though the machines haven't been operating in the Auckland area. But the pain for Counties Manukau Rugby may come further down the track in a month or two if the machines don't get back on next week, like we were hoping.
All right. I mean, obviously, Counties Manukau Rugby is not the only sporting organisation in these parts that you support. There's a wealth. Do you want to give us maybe some numbers around just how many sporting organisations do get some support from you over the course of a 12-month period?
Sure. I had a look at our data, and our financial year ends on the 31st of March each year. Last year was impacted by COVID. So the return to the community was probably down by a third, but we granted just over $1 million to 54 separate organisations in the Counties Manukau area. So in a normal year, it would probably be closer to 1.5 million.
I mean, how pivotal is that funding for their existence? I mean, from my anecdotal experience in community sport, these organisations, these amateur organisations, are completely reliant, aren't they, on the likes of yourself propping them up? Otherwise, sport would be in a heck of a mess.
Well, I think that's correct. Well, I've got a background in amateur sport, and I guess back in the day, they relied on income over the bar and selling raffles and the like, but those days are long since gone, and I would venture to suggest that without the community funding that Grassroots and others provide, it would really be an uphill battle for all sporting organisations, which would obviously be passed on to the participant in the form of increased subs, which would then drive people out of sport because they can't afford to simply pay to play.
All right, let's look at the COVID situation. We've had one significant lockdown last year that gave us a little bit of an idea of how the industry would respond. What sort of learnings did you sort of get? I hate using that word. What sort of findings did you get from last year's lockdown, and what do you expect we're likely to see over the coming months, given where we're at the moment?
Well, last year we were fortunate that the government, in the form of the Department of Internal Affairs, allowed us to build some reserves, which we'd never been able to do previously. So when the lockdown happened this year, all trusts were in a lot stronger financial position than previously. So it has enabled us to continue funding thus far, but although we're operating in the rest of the North Island, we're not operating in Auckland. And so if the Auckland situation continues, there's going to be an impact for sporting organisations and other community groups. And as I say, that'll be in the next month or two if things don't get operational shortly.
How quickly did it bounce back last time? Do you expect, let's say if we do stay in some sort of compromised lockdown for another 2, 3, 4 weeks, how quickly do you think we'd be back to normalish?
Last year, things bounced back to normal way quicker than anyone anticipated. And the community really worked well together. Like some of our venues were getting assistance from their landlords with rent and the like. Things seem to be a bit quieter this time, and a number of venues are reporting that their revenue's down 20 to 30% across the bar and food. So that's bound to have an impact on what we do, because it appears from what we've seen and heard that less people are actually going out at the moment.
So I guess, mate, just to wrap this up, is there any advice that you'd give to some of the amateur sporting organisations, particularly in our Counties Manukau region where we are impacted by the Auckland lockdowns? Any advice about how to try to get back to normal?
I think in the main, what we learned from last year was that the sporting organisations were pretty resilient, and they cut their cloth accordingly. And I think that they're faced with the same situation this year. So if it's not necessary, if it's a nice to have, don't go down that path at the moment. Stick to the basics, I think, is probably the best advice I can give them.
All right, mate. Well, look, Martin, appreciate your time today and the support for sport in our region. Yeah, we're obviously very grateful for what you do in our parts, and yeah, best of luck getting through the rest of this lockdown.
All right, thanks very much, Dale.